Now, you know what a situation is? It's when your situation has a situation. And that's called a situation. And God will allow you to be in a situation in which the economy of your life, the supply and demand is not meeting up. And you will begin to think that it is the stuff, but it is never stuff. God is never short. God has what you need, but God will put you in some places that require you to demonstrate where your faith is. And I'm talking to some people who've lived long enough to know that God is no short of his word. If he ordered it, he will pay for it. If he called you, he will provide, but he expects you to demonstrate a level of, is there anybody in here who understands what I'm about to say? It may not be all right, but it's going to be all right. It may not be like you want it, but you know God will take care of you because you have faith, and that faith is what accesses the power of God. Stuff is never the issue. In fact, in church, in whatever organization you're in, it's never about fundraising. Whenever we get into issues of money in the church, the issue is not fundraising, it is faith raising. Whenever you are in issues in your life, it is never an issue of the funds, it is an issue of the faith. Do you trust God? Do we believe that God brought us where he brought us to leave us? Or do we believe that we've just got to trust God and continue to walk in the way that God has called us to? Am I talking to anybody in here? Is there anybody that's ever had to turn down your plate and just pray until the Lord moved in your life? Anybody in here that's ever had to exercise some discipline, didn't know what God was about to do, but you knew God did not bring you this far to leave you? I'm standing on the promises, and that is that God said, if you go with me, I will take care of you. Stuff is never the issue. But then, when stuff is never the issue, we've got to remember that life is about other people, Kyle. Because when one disciple came to Jesus and said, Jesus, send these people away. We can't take care of them and take care of ourselves. And Jesus said, no, you feed them. You take care of them. Do you understand that the goal of life, the Christian way of life, is that Christians are the customer service department of the earth? Oh, I wish I could make this thing plain. When you are in a no relationship works if you're looking out for yourself in the relationship. No relationship works if I am in the relationship to get my needs met. If I can only be in the relationship to get your needs met. If you are in a church to get something out of it, you miss the whole understanding of how relationships, how movements, how churches work, how marriages work. You can't come into it trying to get what you want out of it. You got to come in ready to sell out and give yourself to the other person. If you came in and wanted to get your needs, you needed to marry yourself. Oh, y'all are missing me this morning. When you come into a relationship, it's about meeting the other person's needs. It's about being there for him or being there for her. When you're in a church, it's about thinking about the other person. When you are a Christian, it is about putting down your needs and meeting the needs of the world, because you are leaving your needs up to God. I ain't gonna get an amen in here. Let me see if I can make it plain. We are the customer service department of the world. Because you know, one of the things that is missing, customer service. I mean, it is missing. It is missing in the stores. It is missing in life. I went in the store a couple of days ago. So I'm walking in the store. You know, I'm walking in the store, and it's one of those stores that the door will let the people know somebody came in. You know. So you open up the door, little bell, little something, let them know, because they could be busy. So I walk in, bell lets you know I'm in here. So the person is on the phone. I'm like, all right, high tech, high touch, I understand you got mail orders. You know? So I'm in here and I'm standing around. And you know, appropriately you stand around for a while. He's on the phone. I'm like, I'm here. You know, so I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, I know I'm short. sitting here, I'm thinking, I'm like, somebody gonna say, dude, look up. You know, he looks up. He sees me. And I'm like, okay, here comes, you know, may I help you, please? I'm like, nothing. I'm like, dude. Then I started thinking about it. I'm like, and you want me to spend my money in here. You want me to give my money. You want me to take it out by my pocket and buy something in here, and you can't say boo cat dog to me. That sound like your grandmother there, right there. and you can't say a thing. So he heard the bell of the door again. The first time was to tell him somebody came in his door. The next time was to let him know I just lost a sale. And you're laughing at him, but some of us need to recognize that we are the customer service department of the world. Why? Because this is our Father's world. And so when you see somebody in need, you're the one. We are the Christians. May I help you? Can I do something for you? Can I help you here? Can I give you a cool glass of water? You're looking at me like I'm crazy. And some of you have missed out on a blessing because God sent somebody your way and you look down your nose at them. God sent somebody your way and you blame them for their circumstance. God sent somebody your way and you forgot that there but for the grace of God could have been you. And you missed out on your blessing. You've been asking God to break you off, and then he sent you somebody that was in need, but you looked over them thinking that God can somehow bless you without blessing somebody else. But that ain't how it works here. The way it works in the kingdom is that God will call you to be a blessing to somebody first so you can get that stuff out the way. And when you get that out the way, it makes room for what he's about to do in your life. Jesus said, you feed them. But then you got to have the right attitude with the action. Because you know, sometimes you can help folk and make them feel worse. So you wonder, where is it in the text? Where is it in the text? Jesus, can you imagine 5,000? I'm looking at y'all. I can't imagine trying to feed y'all right now. Even if we got it all down here, we got to get some organization to this. But if I don't want to, I can just look at it and get scared. You can look at something and it be too difficult. Because sometimes if your attitude's not right, you do know that 90% of can't do is don't want to. 90% of can't do is I just don't want to. But if I don't want to, I'll be afraid, I'll look at it. But Jesus said, no, sit them down. And then some of the Gospels say he sat them down in 10s and in 50s. They had to organize. They had to organize and get to the people. But you won't take that kind of time. You won't take the time to really figure out how to help somebody if you don't really have the right attitude. And you need to understand that the blessing is in the attitude. I know I'm in Bible country because when you go back over to Matthew and read what we call the Beatitudes, everything that Jesus taught in the Beatitudes was about what's going on in your head and what's going on in your heart. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go on record. If your attitude is not right, keep it. If when you're walking around and giving your tithe and you're cussing under your breath, take it back. If you're getting involved in feeding somebody and you got to dog them out, please don't show up. We need folk who recognize the humanity of people. When you feed, just because somebody is homeless doesn't mean they're not a human. Just because somebody is hungry doesn't mean they don't have the same feelings that you have and that you've gone through. You don't know what brought them to that point. You don't know what they've been through. You ought to thank God that maybe you didn't go through what they went through, and if you did, you ought to thank God that he picked you up, that he turned you around, that he gave you another chance. But there's another side to it. There's another side to it. You got to have the right attitude, because I wish I could tell you that when you help people, they'll appreciate it. But let me see if I can make this plain. I have been pastoring the Lord's people long enough. It's not in the text, but I am homiletically and hermeneutically going to eisegetically read into the story. And I want to suggest to you that I know I'm not wrong, because there was 5,000 men plus their family, possibly 15,000 people. And if you have ever helped anybody, you know that they only had fish and bread. And I guarantee you that somebody said, y'all ain't got no lamb. Dude, you getting this for free. It's a miracle that we've been working on it. And I mean, come on. Y'all looking at me like I'm crazy. But is there anybody in here that understands? And I wish I could protect you from it. Sometimes you're going to do for people and they will not say thank you. Sometimes you're going to do for people and they're just going to want more from you. Sometimes you're going to do for people and what you do is not going to be enough. But watch this. You didn't do it for them in the first place. I didn't do it for you in the first. The reason that I'm doing it is because the God that I serve. Touch your neighbor, say, here comes the big shout. And as a matter of fact, I don't want to do it so you can do something back for me, because all you can do is give me back what I gave you. But when I do it as unto the Lord, when he brings it back, it's going to be pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And watch the rest of that verse. Shall men give unto my bosom? That means it's coming not only from here, but from there, and from there, and from there. When God pays you back, that's how you live on the leftovers. But I know you're struggling. You know why you're struggling? You know why you're struggling with this? You are struggling with this because you are bringing a 21st century bus boy mentality to the end of this meal. You know what you're seeing, because you're seeing fragments and you're thinking end of the meal, and you're thinking this is like empty fish bones, and you're like, where in the world are you getting living off of leftovers when they're picking up and they're bussing tables? See, that's your problem. See, you're reading it like a busboy. You got to read it theologically, and you will understand that they're not picking up their garbage. Let me see if I can help you with it. You do remember that this language that Jesus uses here in chapter 6 is the same language that he is also going to use in chapter 13. It is also the same language. What Jesus does, I said earlier that this food on the side of the altar is as holy as the food in front of the altar. And that challenged some of us liturgically because we know how we respect the communion table. And then, but the reality is, Jesus uses the same language that he uses to pass out communion in John 13, that he uses when he passes out this food to the people who are hungry. He takes the bread, he blesses the bread, he breaks the bread, and then he passes the bread. In the upper room, he took the bread, he blessed the bread, he broke the bread, and then he passed the bread. Now, if I had time, and I'll talk about it at another time, that's really what Jesus does with things that he sanctifies and that he makes holy for his service. He takes it, then he blesses it. This is the part you don't like. Then he breaks it, and then he passes it. See, some of y'all have been taken and blessed, but you don't want to be broken and passed. And if you're going to get to the point where God can really use you in ministry, you got to let him break you and pass you. That's for another sermon. I just threw that in. But so then what happens in the text is the same language that he uses to bless communion in John 13 is the same language he uses to bless the feeding of the hungry. Now, the way the Christian church has done this and the Catholic church has done it is you read the end of it. It says, and collect everything so that nothing is lost. That is where the theological tradition of the priest has come from, when the priest would then take what is left of the Eucharist and finish it off. You know, we make jokes about the priest finishing off the wine. And what the priest would do is, because all of it has been blessed, then that means none of it can be wasted. So then that meant that whatever was left over should be drunk by the priest. And so sometimes when you got big